This chapter of Dandadan was awesome. Alright, pipe down, you goons. I found this chapter to be quite interesting, as it's the setup of a new arc for the series, one in which Turbo Grandy seems to not be around, seemingly, but maybe they won't actually need the old bat this time because of the existence of fairies, which we learn about here, while also growing the relationship further between Momo and Okaron. Needless to say, but the overly optimistic content creator that loves to be happy is quite happy about this chapter. I'm also happy to plug gamer subs, because this channel is not monetized and I still need food to live. Use code CTactics to get 10% off orders site-wide. There are plenty of shakers and flavors to choose from, like Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Energy, Shy Lily's Butthole Blast, and Kaho's Guilty Pleasure. So let's jump into the video. Okay, so first off, I gotta say, the stonks for little Momo skyrocketed this chapter in ways nobody has ever seen before. We open up with Momo eating food, which is quite fascinating because grains of rice to her are exactly like normal-sized mochi balls. All the while, Vimola looks at her with a twinkle in her eye. Literally, I mean, there's a star in her eye. It's right there. So at her size, 2 grains of rice fill her up pretty much immediately. And talk about a low-carb diet. I gotta say, shrink me down to Momo's size so I can eat some small rice grain mochi. It looks so tasty. But Vimola offers her some meat, but Momo laments not being able to eat some ramen instead, which Seiko says, you know, she'll make some for her with that posture that only Seiko could have. I mean, I swear, you could give me a silhouette of Seiko in totally different positions and I know it's her just from her posture alone. I mean, Jesus, what a mega Chad. Anyways, Vimola feeds Momo with water through a little squeeze bottle, which I'm sorry, this image is out of this world. The sheer ridiculousness of an alien feeding a shrunken down girl with a squirt bottle is just, it's beautiful. But she eventually gets a bunch of water on her, and even though it's really interesting, water clings to her in little globules, so she drinks from those. And the crazy part is the water doesn't even like get her wet seemingly because Momo is that tiny now. And yeah, she immediately is like, this must be what astronauts feel like in space. And yeah, the visual is quite familiar with videos that I have seen of astronauts on the space station. I just think it's really cool that Tatsu put this much little detail into her being so small. I also think this potentially has to be Momo's advantage in this arc if she has to do battle with a fairy or something. I mean, just use these new aspects of her tiny life as her advantage against her opponents. In a sticky situation, well, throw some water globules at the enemy or something. You know, something cool like that. So Momo, feeling on top of the world right now, thinks she won't have to go to school, but just like any good grandmother or mother, Seiko forces her to go to school. And I found this quite funny, relatable, and even endearing to both Momo and Seiko because, I mean, think about it. How many times have we all woken up for school in the morning and thought you'd be off the hook over something that felt like an easy pass just to stay at home that day, only to have your mother practically force you to go instead? I mean, I've got plenty of stories like that, and so this is just funny to me because, it's totally true. But it's also a subversion of expectation in the sense that technically, Momo really shouldn't go because of her size, and Seiko being stubborn shows both how much she cares for Momo and her future, but also the fact she doesn't care at all what Momo is going through, even if she's tiny now. She's gonna go to school, damn it. There is no excuse. Education comes first. I also love how Vimola during this is like, let me take you in my backpack, Momo. And Momo is just like, what the hell? No. Yet at the same time, Seiko is like, don't let anyone see you. The whole situation really is just a cacophony of goofs. Though, once again, this chapter had me saying true at every single page because to get Momo to go, Seiko asks to see her report card and she goes right away. I mean, just absolutely hilarious scenes with a lot of really cool details like the small food and water, Vimola being hilarious along with Seiko, and Momo having a mother-daughter spat. I mean, it was all just so well done and so funny. And so they arrive at school as Okaron and Ira both react to tiny Momo coming along in Vimola's little pocket. I love how Ira just squeeze at Momo. I mean, I just don't know. I feel like this is what Ira's character was actually made for at this moment, just to squee and fawn over a tiny Momo. It's just, I don't know, it's too much. Oh no, I think I'm gonna squeeze. Also, keep in mind, as Momo rides in Vamola's shirt pocket, hilarious visual, she tells everyone to shoo because she doesn't want people to figure out she's tiny. And keep that in mind. So during class, as everyone studies, Momo does as well with her little pieces of paper, her little pencil, all out in the open. She's so cute. Okaron even calls it out, which prompts her to respond too loudly as Vamola randomly juts into the conversation like, oh, you know, me and Vamola, I made Momo stationary myself. I mean, just so proud of herself with that super wide grin. Turns out, though, Vamola just cut pieces of notebook to make it, which still, I mean, very clever, though I wonder how she made the pencil. Okaron tells Vamola to hide Momo in her pocket, but instead, Momo calls out to the boy sitting next to Vamola and proceeds the most relatable moment of any manga ever. The boy, feeling himself, as we do, thinking he got the lady's attention of all the girls, turns on the Riz and is like, oh, were you talking to me, m'lady? And Vamola is just like, no, I wasn't. Let me tell you, this has happened to me a lot, and a lot of it was very unintentional. And the best part is I feel like it's happened on both sides of the fence too. But yeah, that was some funny stuff. Very relatable. Turns out Momo was trying to prove a point that nobody noticed her anyway, so it doesn't matter what she does. She then brings up that this must be what it's like to be a fairy. So we've had astronauts and now fairies. I find that comparison really funny. And immediately I knew that this would be the new paranormal aspect that they would be bringing to this new arc. I mean, after all, without Turbo Granny, the manga becomes mostly about aliens at that point, right? But turns out fairies are everywhere in this world, and if you squint hard enough, you can see them. Though in recent times, people have seemingly lost the ability to do so. Okaron then gets called out by the teacher, and let me tell you, this teacher looks exactly like one from Persona. I mean, just completely goofy, over the top, and with an overly serious outfit than what's needed for the job. It's just an absolute clown show. So Momo, being Momo, laughs at Okaron, so they agree to continue the conversation in the library. Now in the library, they all begin to look for books on fairies to learn about them. And they get some information like how fairies are in mythological motifs, that people socially vulnerable are depicted as small, but basically they run in circles trying to look for these so-called fairies. And the goal remains the same through all of this. They must do everything they can to bring Momo back to her normal size. They then mention how Turbo Granny hasn't shown up since, and what she noticed is that Seiko actually misses her, showing that despite her tough exterior, she still misses Turbo Granny. And I like this approach of focusing on Seiko even more than just the kids missing Turbo Granny, because while it is wholesome that the kids do, and it'll be a big moment when or if they do reunite, there is something uniquely sad about Seiko losing her only friend, pretty much. You never see that often in stories about older people losing their friends and dealing with loneliness, like ever. I can't imagine what Seiko is feeling like right now. She's probably just accepting it for what it is because she knows she has to focus on protecting Momo and the others. After all, Seiko is a fairly responsible adult. I say fairly, especially when she's beating up the paranormal with a baseball bat. Eventually though, while they miss her, the conversation turns to Okaron's balls, which are all in the right place, so good for him. Moving on. Okaron brings back up the confession the two shared at the end of the last arc. She actually stops him right there and tells him to wait for her to be normal again. And so Okaron, being an awkward shy boy, makes this awkward shy boy face. Oh, it's just so funny. Something about how Tatsu captures the awkwardness, the newness, and the excited feeling that all come with young love. Just, he does it so well. Because neither of them really, if you think about it, have a clue what they're doing. It's just so fun to see them be so gentle with each other, as if they're both super fragile. I mean, oh God, it's just so cute. Because it perfectly shows the type of thing that, I went through as a kid as well. I also love how Momo immediately goes to threaten him if Okaron cheats on him. That's also funny because in any normal relationship, usually you agree to it, then sit down to talk about boundaries, then you discuss that, then you are in the relationship if you agree to terms. I mean, that's sort of how it goes on paper at least, but Momo skips kind of a bunch of steps here. Also, the fact that she's so awkward that at every response Okaron gives, she just gets angrier and angrier thinking she'll cheat on him. God, I just loved it when she said, "Don't avoid eye contact, you son of a..." I mean, just the way Tatsu writes dialogue for Momo in general, and really, honestly, everyone feels so realistic and so fresh. But at the end of the chapter, what does Momo notice? Oh, I don't know, a fairy? And my guess is that Momo, because she is so tiny, means that she can probably much more easily see fairies, because as she said, people who squint hard enough can see them. We will have to see though. But I think the true sign will be if the others can see this fairy in the next chapter. Then that means it may be because they wanted to find the fairy, so maybe the fairy knew intuitively it wanted to be found or something, so it reveals itself. I don't know. I also think this means that Turbo Granny may be going to meet with Saint Germain, because we know she reacted very strongly to his presence, and the fact so far this arc seems to be about getting Momo back to normal than, say, Turbo Granny. I think we won't be seeing her for a while, I guess is what I'm saying. At least interacting with the main cast, so to speak. I could see the next few chapters showing what she is doing, but we will have to see. Let me know in the comments what you thought about chapter 166. Also, listen up, this is going to be a lot of fun. I am at 921 subscribers. If we can get to 1,000, I will do a video on the first arc of Dandadan, the Turbo Granny arc in this channel. So for this video, let's shoot for 931 subscribers. This coming Sunday, I will also start covering Kagurabachi weekly with chapter 50. So get subscribed, get hyped. Thank you so much everyone for your support. Bye-bye.